Hi everyone in YouTube land. I am going to show you how to make kefir and also the different stages that it turns into during the course of the fermentation process. I do quite a bit at a time. I do a gallon at once, but I'm not going to make another gallon because I've made enough that will last me and my husband for at least the next week. So I'll start to slow the process down a little bit. But anyway, so in the first part of this video, I'm going to show you how to strain the grains out of the kefir. So my grains are in this jar, and I don't know whether you can see, but there's a kind of a yellow layer on top, and that's the cream and the grains. And it's been fermenting in my cabinet back here for about 24 hours. So that's how long you want to let your grains ferment, and depending on the time of the year and the temperature of your home and all that stuff. But it's pretty warm in my house, and so it really isn't taking long, and it's summertime right now. So, but anyway, I leave a breathable container on top, which is a coffee filter secured by a rubber band. So I'll take that off, and I'm just going to check that this is done, and it feels really looks good. It looks kind of like yogurty kind of a consistency. And I'm just going to scrape down the side of the jar here. And for your benefit, I'll strain part of it, and then I'll stop the video, start it up again, and show you what the grains look like when they're completely strained. But I'd recommend that you have a plate to put your strainer on top of, so that it doesn't drip onto your counter. I have a small spoon to strain the grains through the strainer into the measuring cup, which is an 8-cup measuring cup, because I do make a lot at once. Anyway, so I would have those on hand. Paper towels I would have on hand, your jars, and your milk. So I use raw milk, which I really recommend. It's been a lifesaver for myself for a lot of reasons. But anyway, so I'll just get started with the process. So what I do, and this is really lively stuff, when you pour it, it likes to jump all over the place. This stuff is truly alive. And so what I do is I shield the pour strain so it doesn't get totally all over my counter, although I do get drops on my countertop. That's okay. And then I just begin the straining process. And I just tilt this little strainer so that it pours down the one side of the measuring cup, and just kind of consistently keep this stirring going. If you were to let it just strain itself, it would be here all day long. So you just help it along. And I use a pretty big strainer in terms of the size of the holes. The grains themselves are pretty good sized when they get mature. So in the beginning, you'll want to use a smaller mesh strainer if you're getting hydrated or dehydrated grains, or if your grains are young, they tend to be a little on the small side. But these are pretty good sized, and I don't mind if a little particle gets in my kefir anyway. So they look like this when it's like a little cauliflower grain, or that's what people say that they look like, and they do. And so now I'm going to put this on my plate. And then I'm going to take my second fermentation jar and pour the strained kefir into the jar. So I'm going to stop the video and pick up when these are all totally done so that this jar is empty. So I'm finishing up this jar, and I just didn't want to have the complete video crash on me, so I've just picked it up to finish this last little bit here. So I'm straining the last of the kefir out of the first ferment jar, And I'll be left with the grains. In this strainer. So now that is completed. So then what I do, so this jar is finished. If I was going to make another gallon of it, I would use the same jar. I would just wipe down the top and it would look like, just wipe down, because the grains, you know, the culture is bacteria, good probiotic bacteria that it just doesn't go bad. It's pretty amazing. You can use this same jar for a whole week. So that's, I would use this jar over again, and I would do it for another 6 days, 6 or 5 days anyway, because I've made 2 gallons of kefir in the last couple of days. Anyway, but I'm not going to do that this time because I'm going to make I don't need that much kefir right now. So I don't like to put them to rest in my refrigerator for too long because I make it so frequently. And so I'm going to use a smaller jar to keep my, just make smaller batches of kefir. And I like it super sour. So I'll put my grains, which I'm just going to see if I can show you what they look like. But they're just kind of rubbery looking, and they taste kind of sour, and you can eat them because they will grow, they will multiply, and you can give them away to friends, or you can keep your backup. I have many backup kefir grain storage in my freezer, and it does work. I've tried that too. I've been making kefir now for, gosh, probably around 3 years. And I love it. It's so good for you, and it's really been a wonderful, healthy addition to my life. And anyway, it's great for your digestion. It's got folic acid and B vitamins and all kinds of stuff. And when you do the second ferment process, which I'll tell you about that in 1 second here, but first I want to finish this. So I'm gonna, the grains eat the sugar in the milk. So you've got to have food for them. And if I was just going to put them in my refrigerator and leave them there for a while, I might just put them in a quart-sized jar and just cover them with about that much milk. But I'm going to make smaller batches of kefir, and I want my milk a little bit more mixed up. So I'm just going to do that. And then make smaller batches. So I'm going to go up to about there. And I'm going to do the same thing about this time tomorrow, so about 24 hours later. And then I'll strain again and just make smaller batches and keep my grains happy and alive that I love so much. And then what I'll do is I'll take a coffee filter and a rubber band and cover that. The only reason you keep the filter over the top is just so that no dust or bugs or anything get in it. Not that you'd have a lot of bugs around, but you might have some fruit flies or something like that. That just keeps it so that it can breathe and get fresh air and process the way you want it to. Now this second ferment, now I'm talking about the grains that I have strained. So this has already been fermented now with the grains in it. Now it does not have the grains in it anymore. The grains are now in the new batch of kefir that I'm going to make. So this was 24 hours ago in this stage. So what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to put a coffee filter and a rubber band over the top of this first ferment. And then I'm going to let it do a second ferment. And what that does is it ups the B vitamins, folic acid, the probiotics by a ton. So it makes it 10 times better than it is on the first ferment. So if I was to just, and you could drink this just like this, but I prefer the taste of the second ferment. It gets a little bit more tangy, and I just love it. But anyway, so I'm going to put the second ferment in my fermenting cabinet. And And I'm going to let that sit for another 24 hours. And I'm going to put the first ferment in. And I'm going to let that sit for 24 hours. And then what I have here is the second ferment that I made. Let's see, I pulled this out of the cabinet this morning. So I let this really get, I really like a tangy second ferment. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take my little spatula. You want to keep paper towels handy. And I'm just going to wipe down the side of this jar, because the way, and that's what you see at the bottom. This is way here. And that's what they take and dehydrate and heat the hell out of in protein powder, and they actually really denature what this beautiful liquid is. And you can actually separate this if you want to drink whey by itself. It's a tremendous healing food, and you can use that for a lot of other things if you get into the fermenting world, but I won't get into that today. But anyhow, so I'm just making sure that the kefir curds, I guess we'll call them, because that's what happens. It kind of separates up at the top, and then I'm just going to mix that up. So, and then I'm going to take my hand mixer and mix it completely up. So please bear with the noise. I apologize that these are noisy. And then I'm going to mix it. So here we go. And that's really well mixed. So now it's ready to drink, and I have bottles that I put my, depending on what size I want to take, I can put it in different size bottles. And see, I forgot my funnel. So you need a funnel. And I just end up putting it in a mason jar and taking it to work with me. So does my husband, and it just works, really easily. But if I'm making it for somebody or giving it to, we're taking it on a smaller little road trip or something, I would put it in a bottle like this. Especially if I'm giving it to somebody, it looks a little nicer than a mason jar. So there you have it. You've got the first ferment that you've now seen, and this is the second ferment, and it is easy to make, and it's so good for you. I just can't tell you how much I love this stuff. And you can sweeten it. If you want to sweeten it, you can put in a little stevia, or a lemon rind or an orange rind or something like that. You can easily put that into it. I really don't flavor mine that much, just because I like it the way that it is. But it's a meal in itself, and it's very healing and very good for your whole digestive system, and the B vitamins and the folic acid and all of those probiotics that are just so wonderful for your body. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and that you start making kefir. It's just a wonderful thing, and I love it. So have a great day, and thanks for watching.